What you're going to watch is a short clip of our 1 hour full podcast. What we have done is we have picked up one small topic of interest so that you can just focus on that particular topic. But you can still watch the full podcast at the screen. A link is given. We will be talking about core BA skills questions, okay, or some core questions which are generally asked. Okay, so I'll start with you. First question is, tell me about yourself.
So whenever you are introducing yourself, you should include your total years of experience, then what are your key skills and your education. And in addition to that, what are your future goals? So you will have to practice this question, practice this answer and frame the answer correctly so that you can include all these parameters into that single answer.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you like to add something here?
I'll just add an example what Ninad mentioned. For me, introduce yourself would be something like, my name is Nitin. I'm a CBAP certified business analyst. I've been in this industry for say around 8+ years. I have worked on AI/ML. I have worked on digital journey design, where we onboarded around 30K customers in the first quarter. So what I'm referring over here is the outcome, the KPI, which I'm proud of. Plus, I also refer to the certification which I'm proud of, which is CBAP. And then you can also talk about, if you have been in the content creation. So I generally talk about content creation because I create content for business analysis field. Yeah. So I generally mention that, I'm an avid business analysis content creator. My content was published on IIBA's website. Again, something which I'm proud of. Plus Techcanvass website as well. So talk about things which you're proud of. Talk about things which have shown tangible outcome. Plus some skills which you want to mention, such as, AI/ML is a niche skill right now in the market. So I know about AI/ML, so I'm mentioning it. So that is how I would frame, tell me about yourself. Ninad, feel free to add.
Yeah, I just mentioned the same thing. The skills, which are the AI/ML skills, the BA related skills, all that should be included in the introduction, apart from your education and other activities.
Correct. So the next question, which typically either the end of the interview or before it, they ask you is, so why should we select you?
Okay. True. Generally, when you face such type of question, why should we select you or why you want to join this organization? First thing is the experience which you will bring and how that experience or your skills, techniques will help the team. So for example, I know data analytics, I know AI/ML. This could help in process automation and process optimization as well. Say that in the interview. Plus a network of people across industry which you will bring along. Say that as well. Nothing works in the industry without collaboration. So networking is really important. So talk about all those points. I bring these skill sets. I bring network of people from IT, insurance, banking. Talk about that, all those things in the interview.
Right. So basically, it could also be helpful if they say that something which is relevant to the project, if you're aware of which project you're going to be put in or being considered, something related to that. Yeah. That will also be helpful.
Do your homework, basically.
Yeah, do your homework. Correct. So now the next little bit into the business analysis activities. So questions related to requirements elicitation. Okay. So people generally ask, okay, how do you go about eliciting requirements?
Right. So to answer this, candidate should demonstrate the structured approach. So to give an example, if I receive the high-level business requirement or a one-liner from the customer, then I should be able to elaborate it and draw more requirements from it. That's the main ability of requirement gathering. Yeah. So once I receive this one-liner, I can start with creating the epic, or if that is not happening, then start preparing for the stakeholder interviews, where you will be able to discuss this requirement and gather more details out of it. So I would expect from candidate that what preparation he is going to do for that interview. So he has to set the agenda. He has to share that agenda well in advance to the customer. He has to detail out what would be the possible requirements out of this business expectation. Once that is done, then the next step comes is writing the user stories. Write those user stories get it reviewed from the customer, get the approval, and then you are good to go ahead with the start of the development. So this is the usual journey of the requirement management.
Correct.
That should come out from the candidate.
So as a follow-up question to that, he mentioned business requirement. So typically the common requirement types are business requirements, functional requirements. So general gap in understanding is the difference between business requirements and the functional requirements. So how do you, if you are asked this question, how would you answer it?
For me, a business requirement is something which delivers value, which talks about the business aspect of it. And when you talk about business, it is value, basically. It is all about tangible value. So it's the what part of what we are doing, basically. Functional requirement for me is how we will do it. How that business value will be delivered when it comes to the functionality. And just adding to what Ninad mentioned about the previous question, stakeholders don't give you the requirements. They give you the need. And every need is not a requirement. It could be an aspiration as well. So if I have to give you an example, someone says that I want to build a home on moon. That's not possible. It's a good aspiration. You can do that. You can aspire for it, but practically it is not possible right now.
Correct.
So as a business analyst, it's our responsibility to dig out those requirements from the needs and follow what your stakeholders want. There are 50 plus techniques mentioned in Bebok, but in my career, I have hardly used 10 or 12. So know about it, but do what your stakeholders want. They should be comfortable with the techniques which you are proposing for requirement elicitation.
Correct. So you mentioned value. You want to add something, please?
Yes. I would like to give one practical example, which will be easier for the viewers to understand how the business requirements and the functional requirements can be differentiated.
Okay.
So let's say we have a need of payment integration from the customer. They already have a website where they want to integrate the payment gateway. This is the business requirement. Now, one sort of functional requirement is that this payment gateway should be able to facilitate different payment options like credit card, debit card, internet banking. And in addition to that, it should also allow the consolidated payments. So these are the actually functional requirements from the need or expectations set from the business.
Right. So you mentioned about the value.
Yeah.
Business requirements actually bring value. So value also brings into question the prioritization.
Correct.
Because ultimately businesses have to prioritize the requirements.
Correct.
So since value is one of the most important parameter, how do you go about prioritization of the requirements?
I'm going to give you a theoretical answer here. So one of the techniques which I have personally used is Moscow. A very well-known technique, which is must have, could have, should have, and won't have. Then I use $100 question as well, which is something like, we have $100, we have 3 stakeholders sitting, and we'll ask them on which particular requirement you will spend the most. So that becomes my number one, and subsequently followed by the rest. Then I have not personally used Kano that much, but I have heard people using Kano as well. Then there is value and risk too. I have used value and risk on some of the projects, but Moscow and $100 has been my absolute favorite.
Okay.
I can add more into this value versus risk technique of prioritizing the task. I can give a good example where I'm trying to build a solution for our customer, and there is a feature which is going to add immediate value to the customer that will always be high in priority. But the feature which is going to add value at the later stage, but having a lower risk, that will be taken up at the initial stage. The reason being, it has a higher risk, though it has a lesser value. So that is where we are trying to put a matrix of value versus risk in this technique.
Okay.
Yep.
So we talked about the requirements elicitation. We talked about types of requirements. Now there is one term which is often confused with SRS, that is BRD.
Okay.
So when do you create BRD actually?
Yeah.
So you want to take it first?
Sure. For me, BRD is a document which will give me the context and background about the project. So as soon as I pick up the BRD, I should know what this project is all about. What are we trying to achieve out of it? What is the scope? Who are the stakeholders? In case we have some process defined that, we have to pick up this element. That process diagram should be there in that BRD. So for me, BRD is, in layman term, is a document which will give me idea about what we are doing, why we are doing.
Okay. So at the stage where business requirements are discussed, do business analysts also get into planning process? If yes, what kind of planning business analysts do?
So definitely, BA planning matters a lot. You cannot proceed ahead without a plan. And when it comes to BA planning, the points which I take into consideration is who my stakeholders are. And the stakeholder analysis comes into picture over there. What techniques I will use, what communication and collaboration elements I will put into place. So I have a way of doing it. Whenever I create a BA plan, I add 2 columns over there. One is actual date of completion and estimated date of completion. Now, if there is a difference between that, I work on it. Why I was not able to meet the estimated date of completion, what challenges I faced, what learnings I had. So that is how I do when it comes to BA planning, to make sure that I am improving myself as well in the consecutive projects which I will take.
So you mentioned about stakeholder analysis in the BA planning process. How do you do the stakeholder analysis?
There are these different types of diagrams or matrices which help us to actually map these stakeholders and what could be their roles, direct or indirectly involved in the project. One of the technique is the onion diagrams. I have used the ClickUp tool, which facilitates this creation where you have a nucleus or a centered project goal, and then there are multiple stakeholders which are sitting around it in the periphery. The option is to even link these stakeholders which are sitting on these different circles. This will ensure that you understand what and how are they related to each other and what will be their contribution to this project goal or a task which you have mentioned at the center.
So, related question. Once we have done the planning, we have conducted the elicitation, requirements are now captured. Okay. So, always there is something called maker and checker concept, where you need to ensure that requirements are ready to be taken to the next stage, which is the design. So how do you ensure that requirements are clear, consistent, whatever framework you use, invest or whatever framework you use, how do you ensure that they meet the quality requirements or quality criteria?
Okay, I'll take an example over here. And I know invest is one of the most popular used techniques to make sure the requirements are clear, but I will talk about STAR over here. STAR technique, which is situation, task, action, and the results. So imagine you get a requirement. We want to increase the sales number. All right, but how? That's a vague requirement altogether. So I want some numbers around it. So it could be something like, I want to increase my sales from 5% to 10%, say. So this is the situation, right? What will be the task? I've been given the task to define a process flow or come out with ideas how these sales numbers can meet 10% benchmark. So that's the task given to me. Now the action could be, we bring in the digital presence. We introduce more products. We introduced a payment integration platform, which will increase our sales numbers. So that is the action which I'm taking. And the result is the increase itself. So that is how you make sure that the requirement which is given to you is actually achievable, measurable, testable. Again, the invest principle comes into picture over here.
Correct. So, and if, like you earlier said, that if there's a difference between expectation and the actual, then you just look at it again and see what is the root cause, and then you move forward.
True.
Okay, great. So now coming to the next question is, this is also a very common question in the interviews, is that what kind of documents business analysts prepare in a project?
Right. I think a few documents were already mentioned earlier.
Correct.
The business requirement document, BRDs, FRDs, functional requirement documents. So apart from these, there are some UML diagram creation happens. Then in some projects, you may have to even create the clickable mocks so that can be understood easily by the development team, and that can be shared with the business as well or your customers as well.